Are you looking for a side hustle? Let's get you trading stocks right now. Let's just jump right into it. As I promised yesterday, I was going to attempt to make $50,000 in one day of trading. And all I used was my Thinkorswim app on my laptop. And Thinkorswim is kind of an advanced app, so I have my link down in the description to sign up for Webull. It's great for beginners, so let's get started. This was probably the biggest challenge I've ever challenged myself to do, but I set out to try and make $50,000 in one day, not only to show you that it is possible, but also to show you that I do know what I'm talking about, and that's why you should subscribe to my channel. So I ended up having to make more trades in one day than I've ever had to, and that was very difficult to do, but just stick around to the end of the video to see how much I actually made. Now this first trade right here, as you can see right over here, it did not go up very much in price. There was a good run up, but it wasn't very good percentage wise. But I went ahead and entered the trade as soon as the blue SMA line crossed over the red SMA line, and also we had confirmation that this price was going to run up by that green candlestick right there holding above the blue SMA and now the red SMA line. Now as you can see down here on the RSI was not very favorable for this, but I went ahead and entered the trade, and it worked out for me. I ran it up from this point right here all the way up to right here where the red candlestick ended up going below that blue SMA line. And the profit wasn't as good as I was hoping for, but I didn't lose any money, and that was the main thing, especially for trying to reach $50,000 in one day, because it would be pretty difficult if you were losing money. And my next trade was with Twitter. And for Twitter, I used the RSI and the blue SMA coupled to get this trade. And so as you can see right down here, whenever that sell-off happens, it is on the oversold on the RSI. It is also a little bit below the blue SMA line, but it's also below that long-term SMA line. So I waited for it to rise above the blue SMA line, and it was still below fair value whenever I bought it. And then I ended up selling out right up here whenever it crossed back below the blue SMA line, but it was still above the red SMA line. So I actually entered the trade again right down here. And so it profited a little bit more money than the last one did, but still not enough to make it to $50,000. But like I said, it's hard to reach $50,000 whenever you're losing money. So I was glad to take this profit, which was $520 for this trade. So this trade, just like the last one, I entered a couple times and also exited a couple times. And so I'm going to show you that right now. And as you can see down here, the RSI was below fair value on both times that I entered the trade. And here is where I entered the trade once the green candlestick rose and above and held above that blue SMA line. And that gave me confirmation both times that it was going to rise. Now this one again didn't profit as much as I hoped, but I still got $670 off of it. And then this next trade, I ended up being a little bit skeptical over this one. I saw that the long-term SMA had been acting as a resistance area for it, and I saw it hit the long-term SMA back here on the after hours. So once it crossed over the blue SMA, I went ahead and bought in, and since it was such a small priced stock, I ended up buying 1,000 shares of it, and it turned out all right, $652 on this one. And then this next trade was with Tesla. And with this one, you can see that the RSI was not really below fair value very often. But what I saw right here, I got an alert on my phone whenever the market opened that it had rose quite a bit. So I went back and looked at it, and I ended up getting in this trade about 9:30 or so in the morning. And I entered the trade right here whenever the green candlestick rose and held not only above the blue SMA line, but also above that red long-term SMA. So I entered the trade here, and then I exited right up here. And then after I was watching it a little bit, I ended up getting back in the trade again once it bounced off of this red SMA line again. Now, if you can see right here, it was still below the blue SMA, but it had bounced off the red long-term SMA, showing me that it was acting as a resistance area for it. So I went ahead and entered the trade right here and then exited once again right up here. And this one profited a lot more money than the last ones. And I ended up making $1,484 on that trade. So still, it would take quite a lot of trades like this to get to $50,000. So while all that was going on, I was in a trade on the Facebook stock, which is ticker META, META. And I entered and exited this one several times. I entered right here, right at market open, and closed right here. I didn't make a whole lot on that one. But then I entered again right here and closed again right here. Now, once again, you can see on the RSI that it is actually at the overbought area at the 70 right there on the RSI. But what I was looking at was it had a huge price strength area right here above the long-term SMA line. And I didn't know how far it would run up, but I knew with that price strength growing and holding in that area, that every time it would cross over that blue SMA line, short-term SMA, that there would at least be a small run-up of price. So that's what I was taking advantage of. That's why I entered here and exited up here. Now, I missed this little section right here simply because I was in too many trades and I was having a hard time keeping up with everything. So I missed this little section right here, but I went ahead and entered again right here. Now, it didn't rise a whole lot and very fast, but I went ahead and entered and I exited right there and getting a pretty good portion of it, getting another nice little profit of $1,654. Still not enough to get to $50,000. And then I entered this trade, and this trade I actually wasn't paying attention to, and I came back at just the right time, and it worked out beautifully. I entered here, I exited here. You can see it was above the blue SMA line whenever I entered right at market open, and there was a massive price strength area coming off of that red long-term SMA line that was growing and growing and growing. And this one worked out beautifully. $4,148 profit. Now we're getting closer to that $50,000 mark. And so at this point, I was getting pretty tired. 7 trades in, only $9,225. I know that sounds like a lot to some of y'all, but when I'm trying to get to $50,000, that is a long ways away. I still got almost $41,000 to go. So with this trade, I went big. I bought a lot of stocks in Netflix and bought in right here. I actually sold out right here because I thought there was going to be a resistance area. And once it broke through that red SMA after going above the blue SMA, and I entered in again right here, actually below the red long-term SMA line, once it broke through, I knew it was going to run up quite a bit. So it did, and it ran up quite a bit. I sold out right here, and I thought about entering again later on whenever I had some time to actually go back and look at it. Ended up not. It was really close on the RSI to the overbought area, so I just didn't mess with it, especially since it was almost time for the market to close. But either way, I still ended up with a $5,632 profit on that trade. Now, that last trade put me at $14,857 for the day, which is definitely a lot closer, but I needed a lot more than that. So this one right here, I actually got an alert on my phone. I did not research this one at all, so that is very unusual for me not to research a stock before I purchase it or even look at it. And this one right here, as I said, I got an alert on my phone because of this spike right here. Now, I completely missed it. I ended up looking at it a little bit later, right whenever it was still going down. But what I noticed once this green candlestick right here closed was that once again, this long-term SMA line right here was acting as a resistance area. So I went ahead and entered this trade once it got even with the SMA line, the blue short-term SMA line, and it rose above. It kind of fluctuated back and forth, and I went ahead and exited once this red candlestick held below the blue SMA line. But look at all that area right there that I got a chunk of, and it worked out beautifully. And I knew that I needed to really buckle down and put a lot of money into this, and so it netted me $19,240 on that trade. But this one really scared me, honestly, because I used about 30% of what I had in this account to purchase this. And keep in mind that I was also entered in other trades at that time. So that left a little bit less money for me. And it really scared me, but I was very glad that I was right on this and I got this profit. And especially trying to get to $50,000, almost $20,000 really helps. And now we are on to my 10th trade of the day. That is ridiculous. With one laptop, 10 trades in one day is extremely hard to do. But I was trying to get to $50,000 and I'm already at $34,097. And so luckily I did my research on this one. So I went ahead and just entered right whenever the market opened. And so I entered right here. And within 30 minutes, I was already up $2,128. Now, granted, I had to put a lot of money into this. I bought like 50,000 stocks in this. And granted, it was at $2.88 whenever I bought it. I think that's what it averaged out to because of trying to get everything processed through the broker. But right here is where I entered, and I rode it all the way up to here. Now, I thought I was done, but I ended up entering again right here because I saw the price strength growing between the long-term SMA and the blue SMA. So I saw that price strength growing again and holding. So I went ahead and entered again once I saw the green candlestick hold above the blue SMA line right there. And I held out until almost market close. And I knew that that extra little bump right there was going to put me over the mark. And I ended up taking home $22,530 on this trade. And I was very happy to see that my profit for the day was $57,855. This was probably the hardest I've had to push my brain, and it worked beautifully. So since I had to work so hard to give y'all great content, why don't you hit that like button? Why don't you subscribe and keep an eye out for more and more videos? They're gonna get better with more and more information. And go click these links. Click them, take the courses so that you might be able to make $57,000 in one day.